Hi, and welcome to the Signs and Symbols Enhancing Science Instruction through Literacy in the MCCS ERA course. This webinar is kind of a replacement. We tried to record the group discussion this week, and the recording got lost in cyberspace somewhere. So we're trying to just kind of recreate the material that we went over during that so that everybody has access to it. The first thing we did is we did some facilitator introductions. I'm Chris DeWald. I'm the OPI Science Coordinator. And I am the primary facilitator for this course because it's part of OPI's attempt to really provide opportunities for teachers across the state to become more familiar with the Common Core state standards and to understand how they apply to them in their classroom. And this course is one of the ways that we're trying to help science teachers to understand how the literacy standards apply to science instruction. We have another facilitator named Sarah Sullivan. Sarah is actually in Wisconsin, and there's a typo on this slide, but she just completed her PhD at the University of Wisconsin, and Sarah created the course. Sarah and I worked together when I was in Wisconsin on a research project, and so when we needed to develop this course, I went to her and asked her to take some time to develop it, and we contracted with her to do that. So she's going to help facilitate this pilot of the course as well to help us to make adjustments for this format to make sure that it works for everyone. Pam Murnian is a teacher, a Helena teacher who teaches 3rd grade. She will be helping us with grading and other logistical issues as we go through the course, and she's gonna you'll meet her as we get going. The course description. The course runs from June 16th to August 22nd, and you'll earn 40 OPI renewal units, and that's about 4 units per week. And we've tried to design the course so it'll take about 4 hours per week. And this is the description that was on all the advertising material. We focus on supporting science teachers in understanding the importance of literacy and text and science instruction. And we're going to have a few parts of the course. One part is a review of educational theory, and we're going to do that in the context of science instruction. That'll be a review for a lot of people, but not everybody certified at a time when they were required to take an educational theory course. So some of that'll be new for some people. But all of it, we're going to do it within the context that's specific to how it applies to science instruction. We're also going to do an overview of the content and structure of the Montana Common Core standards for literacy. And we'll talk about how the standards progress across grade levels and what's specific to science instruction and informational text. And then we'll do some activities connecting the MCCS to science instruction, and the biggest one of those is actually the final project, where we really look at how do we plan our science instruction to include the Common Core and include these theories that we know make up best practice. During the first 8 weeks of the course, we're going to do course content, and then the last 2 weeks is just time to work on that final project. And like I said, it should be about 4 hours of time per week. And this is a pilot of the course, and we can talk more about what that means. But for sure, the big thing is that it means things might change and that we're really receptive to your feedback. I'm going to kind of go through the parts of the syllabus. The first thing I want to talk about is the required text. Each week the readings will be posted on Moodle, and all of the readings and materials are things that are publicly available. There's nothing that you need to go out and purchase. We've actually been really careful to make sure things are publicly available because of copyright issues. It's a little bit unclear with copyright whether it would be OPI requesting permission to use something, or it would be the MDPLN, or if it would be Sarah who wrote the course. And so we've tried to just avoid that question by making sure that there's public access to everything that we use. So there will be times that we might tell you that there's a great resource out there that isn't publicly available, and make sure that you know how to get it if you are interested. Some weeks we'll give you some lists of optional readings that you might be interested. For example, in week 2, there are a few readings that are longer and a little bit more involved. We didn't want to assign them to everybody, but we'll post the link so that you know how to get to them if you wanted to do more reading on that topic. Most weeks there'll be a video to watch that goes along with the readings, like this week's text video. It's something that either we think gives you some real-world application to look at, or possibly it's something that gives you the ability to have kind of an interactive view of what things are doing. Every week there'll be a presentation by one of the facilitators that's posted that goes over the highlights of the text, and those will always be really short. For example, in week 3 there'll be 3 short ones that you can watch instead of one larger one. And you could think of those as kind of equivalent to lecture. We're going to try really hard to kind of highlight and preview the important things. Often you would want to watch those before you read, which is kind of different than with lecture, where maybe it would be expected that you had already read before you came to lecture. A lot of times those presentations, because we're trying to give you the highlights, are going to be something that you would want to watch first. There are 3 things in the course requirements. I'll talk about each of them: the weekly reflections, the resource sharing, and the final project. And then there's an optional thing of this online weekly discussion on Tuesdays from noon to 1. The weekly reflection, the purpose of the reflection is to provide you with a space to engage in critical thinking about course material. They should be about 200 to 400 words, but if your post is longer because you're really excited, that's fine. We're not actually counting the words. We just don't want it to be a large assignment. We don't want you to treat it like a mini paper each week. There's no set format for the post. Some things that you might do, you might post more questions you have about the content, kind of reflecting on, your experience. You're reading this and it brings up more questions for you based on what you've experienced, and you're really kind of pushing back on some of the ideas. It might be that you're reflecting on something that you found really useful or really powerful. You might be responding to one of the prompts directly, or you could be responding to another class member. The rubric is intended to give you some guidelines about what you should include. We're really looking for critical thinking. And the 2 big things that we're looking for when we are evaluating them is, are you reflecting on course content, and are you reflecting on your own experiences? And if you look at the rubric, you'll see that, the bottom level is that you're just accepting things at face value. And we really don't want you to regurgitate the course material. We prefer to kind of hear you reflect and tie it back to your own experience. Don't feel limited by the prompts, and don't feel compelled to respond to them all. They're intended to give you a jumping off point for your thoughts, and they're not exactly what you're supposed to be talking about by any means. It's more just kind of giving you a sense of some things that we think might be really interesting to think about. The resource sharing asks you to share 2 resources for science teachers that both can align to the MCCS and support theory covered in the course. The format guidelines and rubric will be posted in week 3, and this one is due on August 8th. You can do it any time during the theory section of the course, basically. But we'll talk more about that once we get into the Common Core and the theory. Final project part 1 is due also on Friday, August 8th. That's the latest you can turn it in. And this part asks you to do a literature review. You're going to select your topics or theories for that review based on your plan for part 2 of the final project. And this part of it will be in APA format. The guidelines, assignment, and rubric for this will be posted in week 3 as well. The final project part 2 is not due until the 22nd of August, and it asks you to design or redesign a unit that incorporates the key aspects of your topics or theories that you selected in part 1 and then aligns to the MCCS and the science content standards. The assignment guidelines and rubric for that will also be posted in week 3, and that assignment can be turned in anytime after the end of week 8. You don't have to wait until the 22nd to do it. We just wanted to give everybody that full 2 weeks to work on that unit design if they wanted to. The optional discussion section will happen every Tuesday from noon to 1, and they'll be moderated by a course facilitator. We're going to cover weekly reflection prompts and other course content by participant request. They'll be recorded and posted, assuming that we get our little technology problem worked out. They're completely optional, but we recommend coming when possible so that you can hear a discussion about what you're thinking and what your classmates are thinking. They're scheduled for 1 hour, but they could be shorter based on participation levels. If we come and there's only 2 people there and those people don't have any questions, they were just coming to listen, we're not going to sit there listening to dead air for an hour. So it's fine to show up late, but if you show up late and there's nobody there, that probably just means that everybody showed up late and we ended up not staying for the full hour. Weekly schedule and materials. This is a pilot. Things could change a bit, but they shouldn't change drastically. We're working on getting the readings posted in advance, but other materials like reflection questions, videos, and presentations won't be posted until the Friday before the week starts. And that's in part because we're still generating the videos, the recordings, the presentations, and all of that. And because with the reflection questions, we will kind of modify our plan for those questions as we go through the course and are able to kind of react to your feelings and needs. If you have a major conflict with a week because you have a vacation scheduled or anything like that, just let us know. We're more than willing to be flexible. It's summertime, and we've kind of spread it out through the summer, so there's no intensive week. So if you need to do something in advance or do something a week late, if you let us know, we can definitely accommodate that. We don't want this to be a burden on you. We want everybody to be able to finish the course. There's some course requirements and grades. In order to get the OPI renewals, you need to complete all the weeks. If there's a reason why you need to drop the course in the middle, besides just that you decided you didn't want to take it, we're willing to discuss partial renewals. I know that sometimes people have major life events that happen that would mean that they couldn't finish a course, and since it's just the renewal units, we can definitely adjust the amount. Some people have kind of asked, why is there a grading scale? Well, we're piloting the grading scale for the future when we hope that we can tie credit to the course. We want to make sure that the grading scale feels fair by the end of the course. Also, we're going to issue certificates that you can use with your district for your PD plan or that you could use when applying for jobs to show completion of the course. We'll be looking for feedback on what information that you want on that form and certificate. And then the last thing is the syllabus mentions absences, which is really not relevant here. And we should have deleted that, but obviously we took an old syllabus and modified it for this course and just failed to delete that. If you have additional questions, email us. There are a couple other things that came up during the discussion, but because I didn't write down great notes, because I thought the recording would work, I may have forgotten to put them in here. So if there are other things that you want to know, you can email. My email is cdewald@mt.gov. Sarah's email is sasullivan2@wisc.edu. And Pam, who's going to be doing a lot of the background work, posting things, making sure all the grades get updated, that kind of stuff. She's pmernian@helena.k12.mt.us. So thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you this year.